doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, the podcast trapped in its own time loop, right along with the movies we discuss. I am your host, Bubbawheat, and we are now almost finished with our Buffy and Angel season, and I am started at the beginning of Angel, and now I'm ending at the very end of Angel with the series finale, Not Fade Away. Joining me once again this season is my guest, Heather Baxendale-Walsh. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me back on and for this episode specifically. I'm delighted.
Yeah, and, excuse me. Let's see, last time you were on, we were talking about Hush on Buffy.
Yes.
So, I don't remember if we talked about your experience with Angel specifically, like, is that kind of combined with Buffy in your head, I think, which is true for a lot of fans?
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, I was hardcore into Buffy when they decided to do the Angel spinoff. And initially, I admit I was a bit agitated by it. I wanted Angel to stay on Buffy. It ended up working, I think, for both shows. But I still think the first season of Angel is one of my favorite seasons of any series ever. I love all the noir-esque detective. It almost has like kind of that Batman almost feel to it, and the monster of the week with it. I loved it. And then, it definitely went off the rails there for a few seasons and went a bit crazy, but I really, really admired kind of the ability to experiment and do things that hadn't been done before. And sometimes it worked for the show and sometimes it didn't. I had a lot of issues with the whole Connorverse in general.
Yeah, I do like in this episode, they bring back Connor, and he kind of, they have the little meta reference where he basically talks about how weird his season was. Like, it's basically him commenting on how weird his season was.
Totally awkward. and Vincent too. It took me, I don't know, I think I was into the first season of Mad Men before I realized that he was Connor from Angel, and I went, oh, I have to hate him again. Perfect. Poor guy. But yeah, I love the series for a lot of reasons. I love the characters. I love the theme of, Buffy was a lot about overcoming things, and Angel was more about atonement and redemption. And the whole idea of it for me felt like you just don't beat the bad guy. You don't get the end game. It's a continuous thing that you have to do every single day. You have to fight the good fight every day. And all the characters other than Fred were gray. None of them were full on good guys or heroes. And that was something else I really admired about the show.
Yeah, so this really wraps up the series. It does feel a little rushed because I think they were a little rushed, but I am glad that they were able to have this as a series finale, and it wasn't just like a season finale that just never finished with something else. This really has some finality to it, even though, they did follow it up with the comic, which I meant to refresh my memory because I do own several issues of After the Fall, but I did not get around to revisiting any of those comics before recording this.
I think doesn't Angel become, and I haven't read them, this is just me learning about the verse from other sources, but doesn't Angel actually become like friends with the dragon that he wants to slay at the end or something like that?
Yeah, he finds out that the dragon is actually like he was under control or like had something going on, and he was able to free him from Wolfram and Hart, and they became friendly, and Spike ends up like it's basically the apocalypse happens, and so they're in post-apocalyptic Los Angeles.
I
And
love that idea.
and Wesley is a ghost because his soul was contracted to Wolfram and Hart, so he's still connected to Wolfram and Hart, and he's still working for them.
Gosh, that's wild. Okay, I have to get. I haven't done the Buffy comics either. I have to do them both. Too. There's a strange thing. I right before we started recording, I told Bubba, I haven't watched the actual series in a couple years, so I watched the final episode today just to refresh myself with it. I've seen it many times, and I know a lot of people aren't fans of it because it's not like a succinct ending. Everything's not all tied up. That's kind of what I love about it. That's kind of what I think the series is about. It's not about having the happy endings for everybody. It's not like, and even in Buffy's finale, there's some finality to it. There's closure there, but it's also still going on. It's just not all on Buffy's shoulders anymore. Here, it's not a happy ending.
Yeah, they do, like, they kill off, surprisingly, they only kill off, like, one character in the main group.
Yeah. And that death scene was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And if you watch the series, then you know how much Wesley's gone through. And I went through parts of it too where I hated him. I hated Wesley, and I've loved Wesley, and I've hated Wesley, and I've gone back and forth with him. But he's another character that's, working on his own atonement. And I think it was a good death. And I was totally shocked and taken off guard, but I got all choked up and had a few tears come down. And I was like, it was really, really, really beautiful. Do you want me? I think Illyria said, should I lie to you now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just so great. Like, even though, Illyria was such a brief character, but this just really grows her character so much, just having her witness Wesley's death, and she has all of Fred's memories of this love, and then she's like basically experiencing grief for the first time.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like it. And
no.
It's really touching, and like you can really feel like, whenever she's she says that she's lying to Wesley, but as she's looking like Fred and telling Wesley that she loves him, you really feel that she's being honest, and she feels that as Illyria and not just as Fred's memories.
I absolutely agree. And I think the follow-up from that, and we see her express it in Illyria form with murder and destruction. But when she shows up in the alley at the end and she says she's upset, and she essentially says, I would like to do more violence now.
Yes, I love that line. That's so great.
It was great. And that was the thing, too. All the characters that made it to the end that showed up there. Gunn is one of my favorite characters in the series. Illyria looks at him and just says, yeah, you're not going to last 10 minutes, buddy. But they all have great lines.
But you're not displeasing to my eyes, and I hope that you survive.
Yes. Which also, yes, he is a very, very handsome man. But they all get a moment that's there. They get at least one like hero line. Spike gets one. Angel gets the dragon. Gunn gets I'll take the 30,000 bad guys on the left. I mean, they all have that moment, so you have a smile on your face, even when you know they're about to go meet their supposed doom. And Angel ends the series with the line, "Let's go to work." Yeah, it's really beautiful, and not having Lorne there. Oh, Lorne is probably my favorite character in the series. I love Lorne. I always wanted to know more about him and his past in general. But this was a bittersweet go out for him too. Lindsay, he's
we're kind of jumping around a little bit, so let's try and jump back a little bit and become a little bit just a little bit more structured and kind of go character by character here. And like starting at the beginning, like what do you remember much about this whole ending plot with Angel joining the Circle of the Black Thorn, and the episode opens with the infighting, the glamour of them fighting, and Angel finally explaining his plan and what's been going on.
Yeah, he duped everybody. He kind of had to. So he had this magical amulet or something in his hand, and he tells everybody, hey, we've got like 8 minutes here. I've got to let you know what's actually going on. They all think that we're going to still try and kill each other. I'm not one of the bad guys, which is kind of hard to believe because he's been acting like a bad guy for a while, as far as I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
But he tells them the plan, and the plan is they are going to kill everyone that is part of the Circle of the Black Thorn.
Yeah, basically the most powerful players in Wolfram and Hart in Los Angeles.
So they're going to take it to him, and they know what this means. That's the thing. He's saying it. He's like, well, okay, this is what we have to do, though, and we all know what the consequences are. And the consequences, they all know, are pretty much there will be no more days of rest, and they're likely all going to die, and they kind of know that. But every single one of them signs up with maybe not a smile on their face, but they all agree that they're going to help take them down.
Yeah, and through this all, like, Lorne is, especially in this episode, he's the most reluctant of all of them, and he's very downtrodden throughout this whole episode, really.
Yeah, and I've loved his character, like I said, over the seasons, and he's the one who I feel like stretches himself the furthest without crossing the line.
Yeah, and he's always like, the most positive, next to Fred, he's always the most positive, the most chipper, the most fun in this series.
Yes, he is, but he's also the one who I found would call Angel on his crap before anybody else. He would do it, and he'd go, I see what you're doing here. And because he could actually see it, especially when they sang, but he was always the person, I felt like he was the conscience of the show.
Mm-hmm. After that, it almost feels like a heist movie where they're everybody has their own part to play. And before the heist, they have this day where they can do anything they want. And of course, Lorne is singing at his bar. And then, Gunn, I think Guns is great because I haven't revisited the series, but like he goes back to basically his beginning, and we get a great guest appearance from Julia Lee playing the recurring character of many names, Lily, and now she's going by Annie, which she took from Buffy at the after she saved her from the aging demons.
Yeah, and I liked seeing her back on there. And it took me a minute too, and I go, oh, I know her. Oh yeah. Oh, she was on like the second season of Buffy. She was one of those chicks that wanted to be made into a vampire because she thought it was all romantic. And then I remembered she was, like you said, Anne and blah blah blah. And it was cool
I forget what she was going by at that point. I'm pretty sure she was Lily in the fake vampire episode, and then she was a different name, and then at the end of that she asks Buffy if she can use the name that Buffy was going by at the time, which was Anne. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think you're right about Lily too. But that was a good callback, and it was good for Gunn. That's because that's who he always was, and there certainly were times over the seasons where he lost his way, but he constantly went back to exactly that, which also in the final bit, what he gets to do ends up being perfect. And, he remarks on it as well. But I liked his. I felt like Wesley's was bittersweet with
because he spends his time because in the previous episode, Marcus, Adam Baldwin, he came and basically attacked Illyria and stole Drogon, the well watcher who could only speak the truth that Angel kills as his kind of final test to get into the Circle of the Black Thorn. And so Illyria is wounded, and Wesley spends the day just tending to her wounds and saying that basically he has nothing else that he wants to do. And this is really the only thing that he can do at this point in time.
And the sad part is, what else would he do? Where would he go? He has nobody anymore. It's really sad, but it's also very sweet. I loved Spike's. Spike goes to a biker bar, and if you know about Spike from Buffy, you know that in before he was made a vampire, he wrote really, really melodramatic maudlin poetry. And he's reading it to all these bikers, and they
the funny thing too is that he's, they set it up as a bait and switch, because he's like, at this biker bar, and he's just drinking, and he's like, oh, I gotta get some liquid courage, and they definitely set it up to make it seem like he's just gonna get into a bar fight. And then he ends up reading, and then like behind him has the sign "Poetry Slam Wednesdays at 4." So we know that this episode takes place on a Wednesday, apparently.
Yeah, it was really great though, and it was definitely the comic relief that I needed at that moment. And Spike has been great for that in season 5. It was definitely a nice addition to that season as well, bringing him on.
Yeah, and the Angel goes to visit Connor, and this again, it's kind of a weird situation, because at the beginning of season 5, Wolfram and Hart basically gave him kind of pulled a reverse Dawn on him, and gave him all these fake memories of this normal childhood, and has him with a foster family. And then a few episodes ago, basically the spell broke and he regained his true memories. And but so he knows that Angel is his father, but he's still trying to live a normal life with his foster parents.
Well, yeah, and at that point too, he knows all that's been sacrificed for him to do exactly that. Mm-hmm. But that was actually a really, really nice conversation between the two of them too. And again, as you pointed out, a little meta, which fairsies, the acknowledgement of the weirdness of his time on the show was definitely a good moment between them. But it was good to see that was what Angel chose to do too, because I had forgotten about his werewolf girlfriend at this point.
Yeah, which I believe he basically told her to go away in the last episode.
Yeah, I think you're right, to get out of town because crap was about to get real. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then we get to see Lindsay too, which I am a big fan of Christian Kane, and the first show I ever saw him in was this, and I just thought he was a delightful villain, and he really was as Lindsay. But there was a lot more to him as we got to learn over the years. And he was very, very complex in that way. I had forgotten about Eve entirely and the whole bit with them. So seeing them together and the conversation they were having I'd forgotten that she sacrificed her immortality for him and their relationship. And part of me kind of was like rooting for him to be the good guy and redemption for him too, for him to have a redemption arc. And
yeah, because I think it's funny because I watched the pilot episode just a couple weeks ago, and it was crazy to see that Lindsay was actually in the pilot.
Yeah, it was just him and Angel. They're the only people that were in the first episode and the final episode. I might be wrong.
Yeah,
but yeah. I think that was the case.
Yeah, because Lauren doesn't show up till later. Fred doesn't show up till way later. Gunn doesn't show up till later. I mean, Wesley and Anne were both characters from Buffy, so they technically had been around longer. But yeah, that within the Angel universe, yeah, it was just those two characters that were in the pilot and the final episode.
Still a little poetic.
Yeah.
Not full on enemies. Not full-on enemies. There was I guess you could say it was an allegiance. The enemy of my enemy is my friend type deal, which, it does work.
Yeah, and then as far as the plans, the one thing that I always remember, even the first time that I rewatched this episode just a few months ago was in the little black circle of the Blackthorn meeting where they're kind of talking down Angel for not keeping his staff in line. There's the moment whenever the little I guess the PP demon whenever he gets tangled up in the red sorcerer's blood bag or whatever, his little medicine bag, and Angel pushes him out of the way. I always remember that's right whenever he gets him with the little spiked ring that they point out later in the episode.
Yeah, I want to go back and watch that. I mean, they do show it to you at the end, but watching it through again and getting him to see him actually do it, I had forgotten all about it myself. In fact, I had forgotten. I knew how everything ended, but I forgot all the details of it. So watching it again too, that was exciting, actually.
Yeah, and I loved Harmony's part in all this. She starts whining that she's not involved. Like, she knows something's going down, but she wants to be involved.
She's so evil. Okay, and I'll say this much about Harmony, too. I hated her on Buffy. I'm supposed to, but I hated her on Buffy. Every single moment she was on screen whining, complaining, being annoying, I wanted to pull my hair out. I enjoyed her much more on Angel, even when she was being evil or double crossing or whatever it was she was doing. The humor was much better balanced with her character, and I think you're 100% right. She was great in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite scene by far, well, my favorite happy scene by far is whenever she writes at the in the first break of the Marcus and Angel fight, after Marcus throws him out his window and he falls down in front of Harmony, and then Marcus slowly takes the elevator to get back down to rejoin the fight, and Harmony's like, why didn't you include me? And Angel's like, I knew you were going to betray me. Well, I wouldn't betray you if you included me. He's like, you are literally betraying me right now. It's like, you don't have a soul. But I would if you had confidence in me.
No, you wouldn't. And then she asks for a recommendation because she's worried that she's being fired.
Yeah.
Well, literally the building is getting blown apart from their fight.
And Angel's like, yeah, of course you're getting fired. But then he's like, oh, I already wrote you a recommendation. It's on the desk. And she's like, oh, thank you.
And then she leaves.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really, really great. She was definitely a good part of the 5th season as well. There was, and I'd forgotten that she was in it until she popped up once again. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they brought Harmony in, all these extra and new players and characters and bringing them over, which was really, really great. And you needed that at that moment too, because Angel, I mean, it's, first of all, Adam Baldwin. I love Adam Baldwin in the Joss Whedon universe. I love him outside too. He's great. But he's really, really utilized for his talents at best in Joss Whedon universes. And he was just absolutely terrifying as Marcus in this. And he is a formidable man. David Boreanaz is not a small man, and Adam Baldwin makes him look smaller than he is.
Yeah, Adam Baldwin's like a foot taller whenever they do the face to face.
Yeah. So he plays a great villain on top of it, but the fight between them was just absolutely fantastic. In fact, I would say all of the fight choreography in this was top notch. All of it was just great. It's one thing that the Angel show did in general really well anyway, and it's something that I always, attributed as a positive thing about Buffy too. But Angel really, really nailed it. And this whole episode, it was so good.
Yeah, that Marcus Angel fight and then eventually Connor, it has a fantastic flow to it. Just the back and forth and, him starting off by punching him in the stomach and not getting any reaction. And he's like, did that hurt at all? And it's like, a little, but it's part of the job.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. This felt like like the old Angel to me, where he's not just brooding. He's got a sense of humor back to him. He's making those kinds of comments during the fight, and he's still being a tough super vampire on top of it. So it's a great dichotomy. It makes it so enjoyable to watch, and it heightens your emotions because they're all over the place. I mean, you're being amused, you're being entertained, you're terrified. It's a final episode, so anybody can die, and it's a Joss Whedon show, so anybody can die. So the stakes are really high. It's extremely, extremely exciting.
Yeah, and then let's jump to the the gun final fight with the senator, which I thought that's another bit of like fun moments, because the senator just like, she never ends her phone call until she gets an axe in the face.
And, let Gunn have, and I was alluding to it earlier, but let Gunn have all of the vampires. Let him go at it. And then he came out with the two stakes out of his jacket. And I was like, oh, it's on. And we got to see some of it, not all of it, but it was a really, really great sequence. But you're right. The axe to the senator's head while she's still on the phone was perfect. Perfection.
Yeah. And then it's sending Spike to rescue the baby from the Fell Brethren, which that was, I think it's fitting that they doing this episode after covering the time bomb episode, because the B plot in the time bomb episodes that we covered for 9 episodes here was a lot about the Fell Brethren and the deal between the pregnant woman giving up her baby to the Fell Brethren, and it's eventually becoming like a sacrifice once it became of age. Yes,
and I like that Spike didn't put the baby back in the crib. He fought with the baby in his arm.
Yeah, I never saw the movie, but it reminded me of the movie Shoot 'Em Up.
Oh, it is. It definitely is in line with that. And you should watch it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Clive Owen kills somebody with a carrot. So just watch it. It is, I call it action porn. It's absolutely ridiculous and fun in so many ways. But yes, it is absolutely in that same wheelhouse where it's funny, but at the same time, you have James Marsters like doing some real fighting there too. It was good. It was a great sequence.
Yeah, and then the next scene that I want to talk about is, I think the second most touching, but it also, I think that the fighting part of it is not, that was kind of so-so, but the Wesley and the sorcerer.
Yeah, the wizard. I will show you what a wizard can do.
Yeah, I forget what if his character name even had a name, because I don't see it in
I don't remember it. I just remembered him as the red demon.
Yeah.
The thing in him. There's lots of demons in this one. So I mean.
Yeah, I remember Archduke Sebastus, because I feel like they say his name an awful lot, but they don't talk about the sorcerer's name. But I thought, the little fireball in the hand, that was kind of, not that impressive, that he thought that that's what would be the sneak attack on this sorcerer.
Yeah, and, he uses it once, and even then the sorcerer's like, you thought that was going to do something? Okay, yeah, absolutely. I get that. So then, he gets Wesley with a much bigger knife than Wesley pulls on him after that. But in return, Wesley once again conjures another fireball. But it's just a little fireball. And it knocks the guy back, but it doesn't kill him. It was a little bit less
anticlimactic, but
yeah, it was.
But I do, we jumped ahead a little bit and talked about this moment. But this is, I think, my second favorite scene of, second favorite touching scene. The whole, lie to me, where, actually, I guess we did kind of skip Illyria's scene because it goes by so quick. She just And it's mostly off screen too. Like we don't
Yeah,
really
it's
see any of the
implied.
fighting. Yeah.
I don't think they could afford the destruction that she did to the demons in the car. It was pretty fun her walking away though.
Yeah, and I like the moment of her, walking up, or not walking up, but the reveal just in the car headlights, and the stereotypical Satan looking demon gets in the driver's seat, and then he turns the lights on, and there's Illyria, and she just does her little head cock.
Yeah, she's wicked.
Mm-hmm.
I need an Illyria to be friends with.
And then they cut back to it a little bit later, and you just see the car completely destroyed.
Yeah, it looks like it was crushed by a wrecking ball,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially it was.
And then Illyria comes into Wesley's scene and is like, I killed all of mine, and I came to check up on you.
And he was surprised. That was sweet too. He's like, you came here. Like, you were supposed to go to the alley. Why did you come here? He was recognizing that she was expressing, that was an expression of emotion, that she cared enough to go there. And it was subtle, but it was another moment of connection between the two of them. And Wesley's sitting there dying, and that's what he thought first, was not about the fact that he was dying. He was like, look at you, look what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I found the name Cyrus Vale. That's the name of the sorcerer.
That's a good name too. They needed to say that more than the Archduke. That's a very good villain name. I love it when they give characters really wicked names. It's fun.
Yeah, and she turns into Fred, and there's two moments. I think one of them works really well, and one of them doesn't work so well, except it has the coolness factor backed into it. But I like how it's a close up on Wesley, and you see Illyria holding him, and you can see the Illyria leathers on her arm and her legs. And then her other hand comes in off screen, and it's, the human hand. And you can tell that, if you put any thought into it, you can tell that they just did that, they just didn't put makeup on that hand. But I thought it worked well to show her transformation. And then whenever they cut, she's, full human looking Fred.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We all loved Fred so much. If you don't like Fred, then you need to go check yourself. Seriously, Fred is one of the most likable, sweet characters I've ever seen on TV. I love Fred. So I think we all mourned her the same way that Wesley did. But I also was totally into Illyria. So it was. I feel like they did a really good job of making us feel that conflict too. Mm-hmm. Which I think is why I was so distraught when she showed herself as Fred again. And I'm like, oh, but you are Fred, and you're gone, and now Wesley's gone. And this is so sad, and I knew this was gonna happen. Why am I getting upset? But it was really beautiful.
Yeah, and then after Cyrus, wakes up from being knocked out by the fireball, and Illyria is still in Fred form, and he's like, I'll give you a free shot, little girl. Like, what can you do? And then she does the whole, spinning around, and then she turns into Illyria mid-punch, which I think the effect shows its age, but it works. It reminds me of, the higher budget version of it was, a similar scene in the X-Men movie that Mystique does, whenever she's in costumed form, and then she goes to do a spin kick, and then she turns into Blue Mystique mid-kick.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It still works, like you said too, though. It still works. You can definitely see that it's dated, and there isn't the same amount of money to spend here.
Yeah, you can tell it's a TV budget and not a blockbuster movie budget.
But it does work because you're so emotionally wrapped up in the whole bit. Plus, it's a big wee-haw moment. You want her to. You want Wesley avenged. So it's another moment where you're going to be distracted by that aspect of it too.
Yeah, and I think the better effect too is, the one that they're more used to doing whenever she punches through Cyrus's head and it just like turns into dust and you see the skull behind it, because they are very practiced into dusting vampires, and it's a very similar effect.
That is still one of my favorite things about the entire Buffy series, and this whole universe is the dusting of vampires. And if you go back, which I'm doing the Buffy podcast now, you go back to the first season and they don't look that great, but the idea and the concept of it, and like you said, is it goes on like the older ones when you see the skeleton before they go, and it's just such a cool idea. And 20 years later, and it's still just as cool to me. I'll never ever get tired of seeing it.
Yeah, even though it's kind of like the reason for it is almost like lazy writing, or
yes!
It's an excuse for writing, because if they had to deal with all these vampire bodies, they would run out of places to bury them. But if they just turn to dust, then it's perfectly fine.
Well, and then you don't, with the makeup department too, you don't have to deal with blood from where they've been staked and dead vampire makeup too. It's a heck of a lot easier in that capacity. But like you said, it's lazy in a way, but it actually works. Practically it works, but it also works in the cool factor. It ended up being one of my favorite things about the entire Buffy Angel universe.
Yeah. And then the final kind of fight scene that we haven't talked about yet is my favorite moment of this scene, and it is like kind of the most touching and heartbreaking, even though once again I feel like it kind of fails a little bit in the fighting department, because it's with Leslie and I don't even remember what this group of characters were, because I feel like they did not get any screen time whatsoever. They were just kind of, well, we need one more member of the Blackthorn, so we'll just throw in these guys.
Yeah.
But, just this moment with the two of them being done, and Leslie and Lorne. Yeah, I keep getting mixed up because I keep forgetting. I mean, because for one, I'm still Lindsay. I was calling him Leslie.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Lindsay, yes.
I thought I was like, that doesn't sound right, because that sounds too close to Wesley. And
that's what I was thinking of. Like, am I mishearing it?
Yes, Lindsay and Lorne. Yes.
Yeah, Lindsay and Lorne. Well, and that's the thing too. Lindsay is a great swordsman. We've watched him in other seasons fight Angel, and they've had really extraordinary sword fights. And this one is kind of it's kind of like Illyria in a way, where it's, okay, well, we're just going to have him kind of cut through everybody, and it's just going to be, he's a badass.
Yeah, and he also has like this extra strength because he got these tattoos that gave him the extra demon strength too. Like after he left for a while and came back as a badass and hooking up with Eve.
Yeah, Eve. Stay away from women named Eve. They're nothing but trouble.
And then, he's just cleaning up, and Lorne is just looking very downtrodden. He mentions the high note on MacArthur Park helped him out.
Yeah, and Lindsay doesn't see what's coming, not at all.
Yeah, and he's like, he's fully psyched up, and just the way he talks, it really sounds like he is fully on board to become a member of Angel's team and fighting the good fight for the powers that be. And then just out of nowhere, Lorne pulls out a gun and pops him twice in the chest. And it's like, I can't remember for sure my first viewing, but that is shocking.
Yes. Well, and that's why they did it. Now, and not just for us. I mean, obviously for us, but I mean, who would you send in to do that? Nobody would expect Lorne to do that. Nobody would at all. And certainly not Lindsay. And
even he's shocked by it.
Yeah. You? Angel's supposed to kill me, not you.
Not some flunky.
Yeah. And you can see that it crushes Lorne to do it. And as a viewer too, for me, I wanted Lindsay to be part of the team. I was excited about it. I remember going, yeah, he's finally coming around, because I want to like him, because he's a good bad guy. But, again, we have all these characters that toe the line and cross over from good guy to bad guy. So why not him too? Have him come and have a redemption story.
Yeah, he's a great, interesting character. And, long running too.
Yeah. So I was actually sad that he died for that reason, which, I mean, that was intentional. We were manipulated a bit there, but I was more brokenhearted for Lorne, and then I understood why he was so broken and had to leave. I was like, nope, I'm out. This is it for me.
Yeah, because I definitely imagined that Angel asked him to do that early on in this conversation.
Yeah. It was a sad moment. It was a really, really sad moment, and it was a really sad way to say goodbye to Lorne too.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so well done, and
yes.
And Andy Hallett, he just completely nailed it. I mean, his performance in this scene especially is just, it's my favorite part of this episode. It's just so heartbreaking to see him have to do this, and you know that he's going to go off and never see the rest of them again, and
Yep.
it makes sense.
Yep, I'm right with you. It's my favorite and least favorite part of the episode for that. And that's the thing too with Andy Hallett. It's not like he's just, acting. I really, really like to give actors credit who can emote as well as they do with that kind of makeup on as well. And it's not like he just has makeup on, but he also has contacts in for his eyes, and you still feel everything that he feels. It's really, really beautiful and sad, and he's like I said, I always felt like he was the conscience and the heart of the group.
Yeah. And then everybody who still survived meets back up in the alleyway, and Gunn is the most worse for wear, because he has the moments where the very typical I'm not dead, but I probably will be dead because I put my hand at my stomach and then I pulled it out and it's very bloody.
Yeah, that trope. the bleeding gut trope. It's a mortal wound. I mean, okay, that was a good line from Illyria with Wesley. She'd said it literally like 5-10 minutes before this. I'm like, come on, we just had Wesley die that way. Couldn't you have him stabbed somewhere else? It was literally the only moment where I went, oh man, come on. I didn't remember that. I remembered he was hurt. He was hurt badly, and it didn't look good for him.
Yeah,
he's also the only human of them that's left.
Yeah, and in the comic, he becomes a vampire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think he becomes like the leader of a gang of vampires. I don't remember if he's I don't remember the details enough to remember if he's like somehow a good vampire, or at least a neutral vampire, or if he's an evil soulless vampire.
I'm very, 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 very curious now. Like I said, I need to do the Buffy and I need to do the Angel comics. I need to.
And and then we get another bit of TV budget CGI, which I think it looks pretty good here because most of them they did set it at night and it's raining because of course it is. But I think the dragon looks decent. And with what little that we see, and there's like a giant and a group of it's Gunn says 30,000. Well, Gunn estimates 60,000. But you can see that it's like a row of 20 people in costumes.
There's too many, is what it is. But it's all subtle. You don't get any close-ups on any of it, so. Probably for budget reasons, and that's okay. I mean, I was fine with that. I don't mind when a show goes, okay, we don't have the money to do all of these big things, so we're going to try and make it look good with crappy CGI or this or that. They did use some CGI with it, but it was more of a, hey, we're going to leave this to your imagination. And my imagination is wild, so it's totally fine with me.
Yeah, and it ends in a very, like, I feel like I heard a lot of complaints that it feels like a cliffhanger.
Yeah, but it's not. I get it. I mean it too. The first time I watched it, I went, was that it? That's the end? It just stopped here? And I mean, I was distraught. I'm like, no, I need more. And then, you know, after the shock wore off, I was fine. And then I'm sure it was within a day where I went, wow, that was brilliant. It didn't take very long for the whole entire concept to make sense for me. But yeah, I remember at first people were like having a fit about it, and I still maintain today that it's probably one of the best series finales I've ever watched. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and totally
I love it.
The theme of the series. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why Bubba asked me, I don't know if I have anyone who wants to do the finale. I'm like, why not? I will. I absolutely will. Yeah, I'm right with you on this one. I think it's absolutely brilliant. They knew their audience, their core audience, and the people that have been with them and stuck it out all of these years.
Yeah, and I think it gives, you know, even though we don't see the end of this fight, but it really does give finality to all of the characters, and it ends them all on the right notes.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not the right note for Lorne, but you know, it is, you know, a note, and it's a very, it ends with finality.
Yeah, there is finality to it, because in that world there is no finality. You're always going to be fighting the good fight, and you're not going to have a happy ending because that's what you want. That's not how it all works. That's not how the universe is set up. It's broken and corrupt, and that's a lot of the show of Angel. And even after all of this, they still aren't fighting Wolfram and Hart. They're still going after Essential. I mean, they were powerful, some of the most powerful, but they're lackeys at the end of the day. Yeah. So we didn't get that. I mean, Buffy goes and, you know, does the first. She's got the big blockbuster ending and blah, 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 and has that kind of closure, which worked, again, really well for that show. But that's not what the show's about. It's not the same at all. So I think that people may, too, have expected that same kind of ending, but it's not the case. And if you watch a lot of other shows like this, another one that did a really, really good ending that is very difficult for me to watch is Dollhouse, which got canceled way too soon. But they were able to at least make the last season or the last half of the last season, what they had planned to do over the next several years. You get another ending like this where the world is not ending pretty. It's post-apocalyptic. Everything's gone to crap, and your favorite characters end up dying. It's brutal, but you know, if I want to watch a happy ending, I'll go watch something else. I need these shows. I need this. This is something I need.
Yeah, I think we own all of Dollhouse, but I haven't watched the final season. I've seen all the first 2 seasons, but somehow I just never got around to finishing it.
It's another show. I think what happened with that one was the writer's strike went on during the 3rd season, or maybe it was the 2nd season. It was the 2nd or 3rd season, and there was the writer's strike, and then it just didn't get renewed. But Joss had enough time to sit there and go, okay, well, we can at least give closure and finish the story as we intended to. And they ended up being able to. I highly recommend watching it, Bubba. It's good. I've actually been considering going back and rewatching the series because it's a lot of fun. Yeah. I love Elijah Dushku, too. And you get to have a lot of people from the Buffy universe come in and visit. It's fun.
Yeah, I still have a lot of new stuff that I'm trying to work through, and on top of that, my wife is currently going through iZombie again.
Oh, that's one that I've wanted I've wanted to do. Yeah, my list of to be watched is just growing and growing and growing. It's almost embarrassing at this point.
But I think that wraps it up for us talking about the finale of Angel. This has been a fun run, and I'm not sure. I know I had planned to cover the original Buffy movie to close out this season, which may or may not happen. So there's a chance that this will be the final episode of this season, and the next season will start in the beginning of April with Memento More. And I have a couple co-hosts and guests for every episode coming up for that season. And I will be talking about all the color scenes on Mondays and all the black and white scenes on Thursdays. So that'll be coming out twice a week as we get into that. And I may or may not have a couple hiatus episodes in March, and I may or may not have an episode next Monday on the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, but we shall see. And but this has been a fun season, and thank you so much, Heather, for joining me twice this season. And it's been a lot of fun. These have been some great episodes talking with you here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Bubba. I love talking the Buffyverse, and I love coming on your shows.
And for one last time, why don't you go ahead and take a moment and let everybody else know where they can find you and your work online.
Oh, hey, so you definitely like the same things I do if you're listening to this episode. I co-host the Word of Hellmouth podcast with Mark Armstead. We are doing a Buffy rewatch, so we just started season 1. We're about halfway through right now. You can also find us on Rabbit Hole Podcast, so go give us a listen. We're lots of fun, and we try and stay on topic.
And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me right here on It's Time to Rewind. That is hosted on Anchor.fm and is goes out to all the other podcatchers. I'm also on Twitter, where I'm at Bubbawheat. And we also have a Facebook group. It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group. And you can join that to discuss episodes as they come out, as well as get up-to-date information about what I'll be covering in future seasons of the show. And you can also have discussions about time loop movies and TV shows there as well. And if you have been enjoying this show and this season, I would appreciate it if you go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other podcatcher that allows ratings and reviews, and give me a rating and a review there to help us be more searchable for anybody else looking for this type of content. And until next time, grr.
Arg.
Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until you were pretty at night. Time doesn't exist until you were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first.
Looking at Wikipedia, they credit Ryan Alvarez as PP Demon.